Hello there. I'm JP,
Hello there, I'm WH.
and we're both slightly worse for wear, really, aren't we? After the weekend, you were about to tell us about we were both out and about as
Yep.
as wrestling fans as well. We're going to go into wrestling like a little bit at the beginning of this before we get into the Mandalorian recap. But yeah, you were saying you were out watching WrestleMania on Saturday night.
Yeah,
Tell us,
so,
proper
our friends Davey Portman and Braden
hmm
Harrington over at Poison Rana, they organized a 2-night stint at Gabby's, which is Davey's place of work. I don't know if I should reveal that. Oh well, too late.
too late.
But I think he's pretty open about where he works there. Anyways, he organized
Hello,
like
Karen.
that we could get like you'd sell tickets and get people to watch WrestleMania, a bunch of screens. And so I said, I'll come in for Saturday after work. I finished work at 5. Me and my good pal Mike Murray, we hustled on over. We Ubered it over to Gabby's, and and they were like, okay, yep, you're sitting at our table. We're at the captain's table in the bar, prime seating. So it was me, Mike, uh, Eric Marcotte, who does like all the MMA stuff over at Post Wrestling,
hmm
one of our kind of friends of the show, I suppose. Jesse from the Six was there. He's sitting with us, and then a lovely man from Finland named Emil, who was visiting Toronto for like I don't know, like a month or something. I didn't get the details, but he's been in Toronto for quite a while. He's got another week left in Toronto. So, but yeah, that's cool. That we had a nice table, and then Braden and Davey, when they weren't running around like headless chickens, trying to keep everything flowing smoothly in the event that they would join us, and we just drank a lot of. Well, everyone else drank a lot of alcohol. I had a beer, and then I had maybe 2 shots of like from the special cocktail. I had 2 Samoan Spikes, which is like a
Oof,
Jägermeister. Like, you drop a shot
mate.
glass into a glass of something else. I think it was beer. It's pretty good. Not bad. I'd recommend these things. If Davey and Braden do these again, which I'm sure they will, and if you're in the Toronto area, I totally recommend going to poisonrana.ca and checking out any events that they're hosting and stuff. And they had a lot of prizes. They had replica belts and things like that. I did not win
Mate, it
anything,
sounds
thank God,
brilliant.
because I am not a belt mark. I despise belt marks with all my fiber of my being, because if I see you at a show and you got a fucking replica belt, I think you're a fucking loser. I think, why are you bringing an ECW belt to this indie show? Why are you bringing the WWE United States Championship to a show set in shows here in Canada? What the fuck? You know, something with people wear shirts of like other wrestling companies at like indie shows. I'm just like, buy a shirt from like these people. Support
Yeah.
them. I don't want to see your fucking Austin 316 shirt at fucking Demand Lucha or whatever.
In fact, I went to Rev Pro, I think, with a Kevin Nash T-shirt on there. I don't know if that's a if that's a bad thing to do on that one, but it was no, it sounded brilliant. I mean, I love the idea of I've done one of these kind of watch-alongs before because we recorded in Leeds before WrestleMania last year, so it was like amazing. So I know that with Braden and Davey, it'll be a cracking event. And
Yeah, I
did
mean,
you
they
did
set
you
it up.
enjoy the show as well?
The show, I thought it was a really good show overall. Like, I think the thing I disliked the most is probably the opener, because I think Austin Theory is a complete waste
Yeah,
of fucking oxygen
yeah.
as a talent, and probably as a person too, but I don't know that for sure. But as a talent, I'm like, why? I was actually, during that match, I was more fascinated by John Cena's bald spot than anything else, to be
Oh,
quite
yeah.
honest with you.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but overall, I really enjoyed Ray versus Dom. I thought that entrance was really cool. It was really smart. I went into Lottie versus Rhea with like
Mm,
absolutely no interest, because I have no attachment to either of these performers. But like by the end of the match, I was like, they're working really hard. They put on a pretty good match, so kudos to them. Um, but yeah, I mean, the main event was I great. What a story.
yeah.
Kevin and Sammy in California, because they were wearing the Pro Wrestling Gorilla themed tights.
Hmm.
the logo basically on their gear, which I'm amazed they got away with that, you know. Um, but
Thank
that's a
God
great
Vince was
story.
thank God Vince was distracted that
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
Snuck that past.
But overall, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch it again just because
Hmm.
like I'm watching it and I'm talking to people, so I'm not really getting the full viewing experience, in my opinion. So I want to watch it again, and I haven't watched night 2 yet. But I would say overall, like night 1, being in that atmosphere, um, good food, a lot of drinking, good company. It always makes a wrestling show better. The wrestling
Yeah,
can be terrible, but like having people to watch it with who you enjoy their company makes it good. So
absolutely. I'm with you 100% on that one. I mean, I'll be talking about it on Spotlight in terms of it. I general thoughts like that day one was something that when I
so
did watch, because I was hungover because I was at Matty's wedding, which will
yeah,
be Matt, we'll be talking about it on the pre-show because we've got Matty. That's going to be tomorrow night. We're going to have Spotlight because we're going to have.
Maddie's
We're a
going to
bit
be
hungover, basically.
no, Maddie's going to be more jubilant about Roman Reigns retaining the title than he is about
Mate,
getting married.
that's well. I cannot wait to have that conversation with him as well. Like it was it? I heard that WrestleMania this year was described. Someone better than me had said, night one is like you met up with an ex who you immediately kind of like fell back in love with, and then night two was what you remembering why you broke up with them in the first place. Like it was compared to that,
I
which
see.
made me laugh. But then night two has the Shane McMahon incident, which I know you
Yeah.
haven't seen. I've explained it to you, and I don't know what the hell you kind of would make of that. Like
I like a good uh, injury to people I don't like. So there you go. Sorry, I mean I shouldn't say that.
no, yeah, you're all right.
I will say this: like if you were sitting at my table on Saturday night when Logan Paul came out, the things I was
Oh,
saying about Logan Paul, the guys beside me, they're like, "Stop! You're going too far." And I'm like, "Think about this is me saying." They're saying I'm going too far because I despise Logan Paul as a human being. I think he's a complete fucking piece of shit. So you can only imagine the things I was saying when he was like when his match was coming up. But anyways, I won't I won't get myself into any trouble any further about that.
no. I mean, again, it's when wrestling. Your overall point there. I think about when you're going out and you're watching wrestling in that communal way. I'd had this with Rev Pro recently as well, and yeah, like I say, so we've both had like kind of quite lively weekends. So we've ended up back today nominally because we're going to be talking about Mandalorian chapter 20, chapter 21, I should say, the
21.
pirate. Yeah, I'm going all over the place. This is the hungover person in me as well. And we were talking off air before coming on. The theme of bureaucracy is something that we end up seeing upon this episode. I mean, what was your overall thoughts on this one?
Oh, I really liked it. I thought it was a nice return to form. I felt maybe the last couple episodes, like with the foundling, I thought I liked it, but it was also kind of a slower paced episode. So we didn't really get like kind of the feel of what we've been getting earlier in the season with like the kind of like the action set pieces and like really a lot of excitement. That came back in spades this episode with the pirate, because I was just like, oh my god, like what we talked about in the trailer when we talked about the trailer is like, okay,
Yes.
the Mandalorians are going to be fighting the pirates and probably on Navarro, and that's what happened this episode. And I almost was thinking that this might have been the season finale, but it wasn't. Is like it's still kind of the middle of the season, so they got something massive planned storyline wise for the last two episodes, which are be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Like next week is the third last, and then Rick Famuyiwa is directing probably a two-parter of the season finale coming up. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed like everything about this episode, the return of Carson Teva is always nice, and we get more development of his character. Like I really think that maybe going forward he's going to be kind of the stand-in New Republic representative that maybe Cara Dune was supposed to be before they got rid of Gina Carano. So he's likely, because I don't think they're going to be doing that new Rangers of the New Republic TV show that he was probably going to be part of. I think they're just going to meld it into the Mandalorian storyline, or maybe some of the other TV shows that they might do. But we get more developments with, like, you know, the Mandalorian culture, and I love the ending, honestly. Like when we get to it, I'll talk about it, but like I love the ending with like the relationship developing between the armorer and Bo-Katan. Like that, you know, she's kind of putting her eggs in Bo-Katan's basket. And this idea of like when she says, when the armorer does say, we should retake Mandalore, that they want to take back their own planet. I think that's very exciting, and I think it's a nice promise of what can happen in a future season. So
yeah. I mean, with the art that I liked on this was last week had very much sort of felt like this was like a side. It was like a side episode. There wasn't really things of what you think of as like consequence. Whereas this one had things in the way of consequence as well. You know, it's like a kind of interesting episode, because I mean, we said this with like kind of, we'd seen this and spoke about it with Andor, this idea of the New Republic bureaucracy as being something like, and this theme about like, okay, why does it collapse ultimately? And it's like, well, because it can't carry the weight of anything. And they're speaking about, you know, planets in the mid-rim who need support, and there's a backlog of those, let alone like anything in the outer rims that isn't necessarily affiliated on there as well. But yes,
but it's also the idea like that they mention, and this is like something they talk about in, I think, the books as well, that you know, the New Republic is demilitarizing, that they're getting rid of their navy. That's why eventually the First Order is able to take control of, like, you know, large portions of the galaxy by the time we get to the sequel trilogies, because Mon Mothma is like, you know, bless her heart and everything, but it's so misguided that she decides like, oh, I don't want it to be like the Empire, so we're going to demilitarize. We're going to take away like individual planets or systems will have their own like kind of, you know, militias or things like that, but you won't have an overarching galactic military force to protect the galaxy, right? Like the Empire, or even before the Old Republic had. You're just gonna have like and then so like an overcoming force, like a pirates or gangsters or Imperial remnants can come in and kind of take over systems and stuff like that. That's the problem with having a demilitarized overarching body of government in the galactic system, political system. I think you need a military of some sort, right? But that's the problem, is like you have these situations where like places like Navarro out in the Outer Rim are going to get attacked by pirates, and nothing. Then the Republic can't do anything because they're slowly but surely shrinking their military. And this is like something that, like, if you read the kind of the books leading up into the sequel trilogy, this is like, you know, like this is something Princess Leia fights against. She's like, no, we can't have that. Like, we need an army. So she creates the resistance to fight, you know, what's happening, what she sees out there, which is the rise of the First Order. But we see examples of this terrible, like, weak, you know, government system that has replaced the Empire. And I think it's just such an indictment of the Republic, of like what Mon Mothma's vision of what post-Empire galactic affairs looks like is like, it's actually kind of really weak. And it makes an argument for like why so many people would rejoin something like the First Order, like try to bring back the Empire, because they see maybe they're victims of like piracy or like warlords taking over their planets and things like that. And they say, well, if the Empire was around, this wouldn't have happened, right? So, you know, it kind of leads a justification for people joining the First Order later on.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, we start off with like the kind of the idea of what happens when you haven't got that kind of backup and support, because we have Grief Karga, who's planning on moving, you know, the expansion of Navarro. at that point, though, he gets contacted by the Pirate King Corian Shard, who he's there, and he's pretty much decides he's going to attack and turn it into a kind of planet there. At that point in time as well, they start releasing various kind of cannon blasts down, starts blowing up the place. Everyone from Navarro is fleeing at that stage, and obviously the thing he tries to do, Soros, at that point in time, my sons were running in here trying to somehow ask me something, I think, along the way, because I heard an ice cream van as well. So apologies, I seemed incredibly distracted there for a second.
Ice cream. I'll take
so do I, actually, but I'll survive for today. But it's that time of year. You can see daylight. It's like, thank God. It appears to be going to be getting some warmer weather at least. But yes, where there is warmer weather is definitely Navarro. So they're being absolutely blown to high hell, out into the woods, and then he contacts Colonel Tuttle, isn't it? Or Captain Tiva on there, sends him a message that we have him back, and he requests that the New Republic come to Navarro's aid in this stage. He then takes it to Colonel Tuttle, which you mentioned, reference. You're telling me about Tim Meadows and the Brazil reference here.
It's because the character Robert De Niro plays in Terry Gilliam's Brazil, which is a dystopian, set in dystopian, future where it's just overrun by bureaucracy. Great film. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. But yeah, I think that might be a reference. Colonel Tuttle's name might be a reference to Brazil, and to Robert De Niro's character is Harry Tuttle in that film. What were we talking about? Yeah, I got to mention, while JP is out maybe getting a cup or taking care of some ice cream here. I love the scene on Adelphi, which is where the New Republic has kind of an outpost, a military outpost, and it reminds me of maybe kind of those U.S. military outposts you would see in Vietnam, or maybe in modern day in say in Okinawa in Japan or something like that. But they have base, and then they're playing some kind of Star Wars version of rock music or psychedelic music, which I thought was my God, that's amazing. Because we have jazz music in Star Wars, which is called, and I'm not making this up, I swear to God, it's called jizz. That's what they call jazz music in Star Wars. It's called jizz. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But they have this psychedelic rock music now also in Star Wars. Did you catch that about the psychedelic rock music in that Adelphi base, in that bar?
It was a cool bar. It was a very laid back vibe, but it kind of almost made me think of bus drivers having a drink at lunchtime. A kind of very 1970s version. He says as his mic has come out. So it's all going right over here at the moment, and it was ice cream related in the end, in case you were wondering. But yeah, it was. There we go. That should be a lot better. It was a very sort of strange vibe, in the sense of it they looked like they were having. It looked like it was alcoholic. Put it that way. That was my thought on what they were drinking. But yeah, the music as well. It was cracking.
We get a lot of cameos in this scene where Grief Karga's message gets sent to Tiva Carson, and then the big one is for those of you who are Rebel heads like me, who love Rebels, the animated show, the character of Zeb Aurelius shows up in CGI form, and I'm like, shit, he's a Lasat. He's a member of the species Lasat. So is that a different Lasat? No, it's Zeb. And I'm like, oh shit, that's voiced by Steve Bloom, who is the voice actor for Zeb Aurelius on Rebels. He's also, I think, famously, he's the voice actor for Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, which is one of my favorite animes of all time. If you haven't seen, have you ever seen Cowboy Bebop?
I've never seen Cowboy Bebop.
You know what? You would like Cowboy Bebop, JP. You would like the world building of this show, and also the music is by the great anime score composer Yoko Kanno. It's fucking great. Watch Cowboy Bebop, everyone. It's a really good show. It's not that long. You can watch. It's 2 seasons.
They
maybe,
did.
I think.
It's one of the things I think when they did a live action version, and then
shit, yeah,
and that's the kind of thing. Unfortunately, at that point in time, it's just it. That's how I end up sort of losing.
Just watch the anime.
Yeah,
and you can. You know what? They put so much care into the English dub that if you want to watch the English dub, It's not bad. It's not bad. But I would just recommend watch with subtitles and the original Japanese voices. But anyway, Steve Bloom, Zeb Orelius, he shows up. Also, you get a back shot of Dave Filoni as Wolf Trapper Wolf, another X-wing pilot. Deborah Chow's in this scene as her X-wing pilot character, and a lot of cameos. Like I thought it was really cool. It's nice. But for me, it's like Star Wars psychedelic rock music. Awesome, amazing. I wonder what they call it because they call it jizz in Star Wars.
That's
what's
we used to call Paul Mags Jazz Mags back there, but then it just would have been a lot if they just said Jizz Mags, wouldn't they? That would have worked. He says lowering the tone entirely there. But we end up with the situation where he goes to see, Colonel Tuttle as well. But obviously we have the wonderful Elia Kane in it.
So she didn't get arrested
as well. Didn't get arrested at all.
So they didn't realize that she lobotomized Dr. Pershing.
Well, that's it. I think she's
got
just gotten away with it. I think she's just gotten away with it. Because I was thinking, actually, did the doctor end up leaving the room when she turned it up? But then there'd have to be a whole lot of explaining and everything else. But
alarms went off when she turned it up. Alarms went off that it's at a dangerous level. The mind flayer is at a dangerous level. So, like, what is she gonna like? How did she get away with it? It's like, oh, my hand slipped. I don't know. But anyway, she's there. It's good.
And it's become very, very clear at this stage that like her role within this is undermining from within. So I'm assuming that the rehabilitation feels pretty kind of weak. What's great here though is the way that Tiva is immediately on and says that's a very imperial way of thinking. And she tries the thing that she's said with Dr. Pershing as well, where it's like, oh no, need a different, the idea of being able to change kind of opinion on there, but completely sees like through her there at the same time. At which stage he decides to go off, and I do have an ice cream here. That's very, very kind of you, George. There we are. You'd be very, very proud. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Whippy did come indeed.
So we brought you one as well.
That's very kind. Like you very much.
Where's my Mr. Whippy?
I feel bad if I could get one over to you there on there, but it's they haven't put any like sort of I don't know if you get chocolate sauce and strawberry sauce and kind of pour it on. It's just
I'm a big fan of strawberry on like if you go to McDonald's, get one of the ice creams, soft ice creams there, and they ask you, what do you want, caramel, whatever. I'm like, no, give me the strawberry, man. I love that stuff.
Well, it's this. One of the rare benefits of the ice cream vans with soft ice cream just sort of wheeling around the place. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff, and do like my gelato as well at the same time. But yeah, we have the situation here where he can't get past the bureaucracy. They explain, as we said earlier on, about the there's a backlog from the mid-rim territory, so anything out in the outer rims that isn't associated with the New Republic, not going to be able to help at all in any way. So he decides, okay, what am I going to do? Well, he uses the R5D4 to tell him where the covert is on there. They've got the guns out at him straight away as well.
Sorry. I'm like, with that, I was wondering, like, okay, so how did you know where the covert is, first of all? And then they reveal, like, oh, I have a friend from my days in the rebellion, and it's R5D4. So what Pelimato said about R5D4 was actually true, that he was actually part of the rebellion. So, okay. But how does he know that R5 is with Din Djarin and with the Mandalorian covert? I imagine he's trying to find Din Djarin more than the Mandalorian covert. And so it's a bonus. But like, or maybe R5 is just, R5 was just like good friends with Captain Carson, and then he just said, hey, guess who I'm hanging out with? And then he's like, hey, I need to find you guys. I think a little bit of exposition.
Like off-topic, just chat, generally keeping in contact.
No, but a little exposition is here would have been nice. I think just a little bit further elaboration about like how like R5 is cognizant enough to know, or Carson Teva is Teva. Is it? Wait, am I fucking this up? Is it Tiva Carson or Carson Tiva? I gotta look this up.
I want to say it's Carson Teva. It's
Carson
Carson
Teva.
Teva.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. Carson Tiva, played by the great Paul Sun Hyung Lee, Uppa from Kim's Convenience. Have you ever watched Kim's
I was going
Convenience?
to say, yes, I did. And he's like, you see him in here and you think, like, my God, there is a guy who's had a cracking kind of career renaissance, hasn't he?
Yeah,
In the last
he's
few
got
years
the him and Simu have like done well for themselves post Kim's Convenience.
Oh yeah.
Sharon, the character that they ended the show to create a spin-off show for hasn't appeared yet. That show has not manifested. The actress who plays her shops at the bookstore I work at, which is funny. It's like,
oh wow.
I didn't say anything to her, but I'm like, oh my God, that's Sharon. She got Kim's Convenience canceled. No, I'm sure it wasn't her first. But yeah.
Dangerous talk in Toronto if she ended up, if she's responsible for responsible for getting it cancelled.
But Andrea Bang, who plays the daughter sister on Kim's Convenience, she make a great Dr. Aphra. If you don't know who Dr. Aphra is, you have to read the comics. She's one of the best characters in the new era of Marvel Star Wars comics. Dr. Aphra. She'd be perfect to play Dr. Aphra because Dr. Aphra is an Asian character in the Star Wars comics. But check it out. Google it. Dr. Aphra. Very cool character. Where were we? Yeah. So how does R5 know? Yeah.
Yeah. But, like I say, bit of exposition would have been great here. But I mean, in effectively had the conversation where talking about what's going on the Navarro as well. The idea that all of the various things that are going on in the Outer Rim, like he can kind of see the Empire kind of rebuilding in shadows. He's one of the few people who've been kind of onto that. And we end up in the situation where Din Djarin says that obviously Karga offered him a spot of Navaran land out by the hot springs as well. I don't know if that's more dangerous enough for what they kind of want living wise.
Listen, maybe they just want to get some like the Navarro equivalent of a Japanese hot spring and an onsen. Like that'd be they'd be like, shit, we got our own hot springs. Damn, we can just take like an awesome bath, hot lava bath every like lava infused, magma infused bath. Like JP, if you go to Japan, I highly recommend you go to an onsen. It's
that sounds absolutely.
If you don't have a problem with being naked in front of other men, it's
I'm all right.
It's fine. You don't have any tattoos, do you?
I don't. No,
you don't. Then you're good. If you had tattoos, they won't allow you in.
Oh, okay.
You have to go.
Wow.
Like Gareth will have to go to the Yakuza onsen. So
there is a story in and of itself. There. I mean, what we have is the situation here where Din Djarin says that it is time to live in the light once again on a planet where we are welcome, so our culture can flourish and our children can feel what it is to play in the sunlight. There as well. Obviously, Greef Karga, under the Empire as well, was an enemy of the Mandalorians as well at that point in time. You think Paz Vizsla coming up to speak there, kind of explains about this and being asked, but then completely turns it around with a winning monologue where he explains about how Din Djarin and Bo-Katan, helped them rescue his child, believing, going out there and finding his son when, there was very few other people who were willing to do that as well. So therefore completely being willing to fight for them. And we end up in a situation, where Bo-Katan has a strategy to take down Child, even though they are outnumbered in there. And we end up with a lovely big battle scene. I love these kind of not quite magnificent 7. You might say the magnificent sort of 17. I would say as much as anything else, but a kind of wonderful battle scene with on the streets of Navarro, and somewhat I loved this. I thought this is classic Mandalorian.
I like that Paz Vizsla is a very complex character. You know, because at times you think he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, his appearance in the first episode of The Mandalorian season 1, he's very antagonistic towards Din Djarin. And then he tries to take the dark saber from him in the 2, Din Djarin centric episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. And then he's not so welcoming of Din Djarin when he comes back to the covert until the armorer says it's okay. But now, because like Bo-Katan and Din Djarin saved his son, that he's like on their side. But also, like I thought it was a brilliant like kind of babyface turn during the speech, where he's just like saying why we should do this because we are Mandalorians and this is what Mandalorians do. They're a warrior culture. They fight. They live to fight battles, to wage wars against other people. Maybe not the greatest thing to think
love
about
a
really in
rock.
real life. Yeah. So it's like, and I'm sure he's thinking, wait, hey, we can go back to Navarro. They got some pretty good like food over there. Maybe he's missing some of their barbecue or something like that. And then he's like, shit, let's go take care of these pirates. Like, what are pirates compared to Mandalorians, really?
I was gonna say.
And I love when we see the covert. I love the different designs of the different Mandalorians we have. I just like the kind of like unique touches that each Mandalorian we see brings to their costume, to their armor, like their helmets, like the paint, the color schemes, the designs that they put on their armor and stuff like that. I love it. I just love scenes with like when the Mandalorians are all working, and then we go to Navarro and it's like Mandalorians versus a bunch of like dickhead pirates, and I love this whole sequence.
I kind of got it's wonderfully retro. Like in some ways, what I got was kind of almost A-Team style vibes at stage. And Paz Vizsla's gun is never not going to remind me of Jesse Ventura.
Oh no, yeah.
That's immediately where my mind goes in that case. And it was like I'm trying to think of the episode. One of the episodes from the first season where there's that kind of it's like a kind of classic Western theme, and I think Mandalorian works so well when it kind of embraces that, where we have the kind of like outlaws trying to take over a town, and it's very much like kind of a big shootout as you would expect to see within kind of like any Western, and I really enjoyed that when they managed to do that as well. And even then at stages when we have someone come up with sort of like a larger machine gun base effectively to kind of shoot down on the streets, we have the armorer coming in and taking people on at this stage. And the first time we've kind of thinking of the armorer in that kind of action context there.
No, we saw her fight stormtroopers in the first
yes.
season of the Mandalorian.
My bad.
It's cool, like the whole like big cannon against the Mandalorians on the terrace. That just totally reminds me of what is it? The Wild Bunch. Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch.
Oh yes,
it's like a lot
gloriously violent film.
Oh yeah, like there's a lot of references to a lot of Peckinpah movies in the Mandalorian. Yeah. Actually, if you really sit down and like think about it's a Wild Bunch. That's like mainly the Wild Bunch because that's his like Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. If you've never seen that, have you seen that one?
I've never seen Bring Me the. No, I never have. I mean, I always think of. I mean, the Wild Bunch is an absolute classic. As someone who's a film studies student, absolutely like glorious, and then a fascinating director in terms of. I mean, I'm not necessarily mad on things like sort of like later Peckinpah, like Straw Dogs, which I know has that kind of real, like it's very notorious as much as anything else. But as someone who shot action sequences before times where people really gave it the amount of thought of an action sequence, like Peckinpah is incredibly influential. But yeah, if you haven't seen The Wild Bunch, check it out. It's like one of a phenomenal film.
Yeah. So there's an influence that's influential on this scene here.
Yeah.
And then the armor just comes in and wrecks people like she's Donnie Yen in any of his movies. It's great.
But we've also got the battle up there in the skies as well, where we have Bo-Katan effectively taking on, and we have Vane, one of the lieutenants from the leading leading the charge for the baddies at this stage, but they're kind of pretty much destroyed. They say it's Pirates versus Mandalorian and talking about 10-1, and Din Djarin says, I like those odds as well. And you kind of, absolutely tears through them at this point. Vane leaves as they manage to effectively take down the pirate ship, which ends up crashing there as well. And we assume he's dead now at this stage, Shards?
Probably.
Yeah, we'd be thinking on there as well. But yes, we think to ourselves, there's a big speech from Grief Kargan at that point to everyone in the bar, him as the High Magistrate, as he likes to be reminded as well. The Mandalorians look they're going to settle in. And then we have the Armorer asking for a private audience with Bo-Katan. This was a scene I didn't see this coming, I have to say. I kind of thought to myself, we kind of had like a kind of nice kind of plot, but it was one of the first of I thought the two nice sort of tonal shifts that kind of really brought things on with the last two kind of major scenes in this episode, because we have the Armorer asking Bo-Katan to take her helmet off on there as well. I mean, mentions that that they both remember the Great Forge of Mandalore on here, and that Bo-Katan can be used to keep the Mandalorian flame alive and maybe reclaim their home world there as well. And the new age being upon us, and that Bo-Katan, having walked in both worlds, is the Mandalorian to be able to do that by bringing those kind of what she would view as the lapsed Mandalorians sort of back into the fold, expanding the church.
Yeah, so she's gonna have to. So the idea is because Bo-Katan was the leader of the lapsed. Let's call them the lapsed Mandalorians, the ones who removed their helmets. That like the Armorer is smart enough to see like, okay, she used to be their leader.
Yeah,
she can be their leader again, and then she can unite them with their covert, which is, I don't know what, maybe you're saying 17. I think maybe it's like around 30 Mandalorians in total in this covert, something like that. That's not enough. And if they have the other Mandalorians, and you would assume that Bo-Katan knows where they all are, that she can bring them back and she can unite them. And then like she knows, like the Armorer knows, like, okay, she's better candidate for that, because also Bo-Katan has that ambition of being the leader of the Mandalorians. Like Din Djarin doesn't have any aspirations for that at all. That I think one of the things we're going to see possibly is like a duel between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin for the Darksaber, where like
just going to ask you about that.
And Din Djarin would be just more than happy to like, just take, like maybe she'll do like the Kevin Nash finger poke of doom or something. on Din Djarin or something like that in the future. But I think that's what we're leading up to. I don't know if it's by the end of this season or something we're going to build to towards next season, but we're gonna see like the showdown between Bo and Din, and it's going to be for the Darksaber to be the leader of the Mandalorians. But like you have to have a reason for why Din Djarin wants to keep the Darksaber. Like
that's what I was thinking, because it doesn't seem like effectively it is something. I mean, he wasn't as comfortable with it, and obviously as Bo-Katan is. I mean, it feels like I don't know. Maybe for me, are they gonna have that tussle over it? But I think, like you say, I don't think it's going to be resolved by the end of this season. This feels like one of those kind of larger world, like the fate of Mandalorians and Mandalore, that kind of the overarching plot lines that can go really up until certainly well into season 4 as well there.
But I like the fact that we now know that like the Armorer does believe that Bo-Katan saw the Mythosaur.
Yes,
he sees this as a what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? A portent of things to come, a sign of things to come. Like that. Okay, this is the dawn of our new age of a rebirth of the greatness of Mandalorian culture on Mandalore, because she wants to go back to Mandalore. And it'd be great. Like then everyone can just mass bathe in the waters of the mines of Mandalore, and then keep their helmets on and there you go. And like it's all good, and they can all follow the way, and then we don't know what happens to them for 17 years later in the by the time of the Force Awakens. So yeah, it was cool, but this is not the end of our episode, JV.
No. And I thought this was a great, like, just really well shot. I thought.
No, your mic's off. No, not. I can't hear you. Not.
Am I coming through now?
No, you're back now. It's good.
Thank God for that. Just going into like I loved this last sequence on here. We have Tiva coming across a wrecked shuttle that's had an extraction attack. In other words, going to be extracting something from the ship on there, extracting someone. And, it leads him to conclude that it's Moff Gideon that's been taken away on there. And the wreck contains traces of Beskar on there. And that this might be a Mandalorian attack in order to get out Moff Gideon, or being framed in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I thought this was fantastic. It was shot kind of like quite horror movie style. Like you can see frozen bodies, but it's kind of like slightly blurred or out of shot. So it doesn't.
There's an implication that Cara Dune's hand is one of the frozen hands we've seen, because she would be part of the team escorting him to trial, maybe. So that's how they maybe take care of the Cara Dune issues. Like, oh, she's dead. She was on that shuttle. But I have to say, just as the nerd in me, the Star Wars nerd in me, loves the fact that the probe comes out of Carson's R2 unit from his X-Wing, and it's like, like what we see, kind of like they're like a periscope kind of device that a lot of R2 units have. Like you see an R2D2 has that, and then actually no, it's a probe. It can fly out and be a separate unit, remote unit. I thought that was a nice touch. That's really cool.
Nice, sort of like wonderfully retro at the same. This is where they kind of get, like, particularly on Andor, they always kind of like, I love the idea of the kind of futuristic, like sort of 80s retro, and this kind of falls quite nicely into that kind of category. But yeah, it's, we weren't doubting that. We were expecting Moff Gideon to be able to return. It explains a lot of the kind of the events of the season across there with Moff Gideon. He was featured in the first kind of like recap at the beginning of the first episode of this new series. So we are getting to the point, and I imagine for the, like you mentioned, for the two-parter that we're going to be having in a couple of weeks' time, would that be the place where we end up possibly seeing Moff Gideon?
I personally think it's a frame job. To be honest with you, I don't think it was like the Mandalorians. I think this is where we're gonna possibly get the live action appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, at least.
Yeah, because there still hasn't been any news. Like, obviously, no news on casting.
No, but they again, like they like to have these like big surprises for the last couple of episodes of this iffy season. Moff Gideon being the one in season 1, Luke being the one in season. Well, I mean, we had 2 last year. We had Boba Fett and we had Luke at the end. So I think they're gonna do something similar here. Is that they're gonna the return of Ahsoka maybe to the show. Who knows? But because I think Thrawn is going to be the main antagonist in the Ahsoka TV show, but they're going to launch it from here. But because he can also be the main bad guy of this show too, if you need him to be. We'll see what happens. Like, I mean, there's got so many references to Rebels, JP, like the Purrgil, Zeb Aurelius is in here, and then like kind of hints about, and these are all leading up to like the main storyline of the Ahsoka show, which will be the search for Ezra Bridger, because that's the main storyline that we get at the end of Rebels. Is like that's what Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, who's another Mandalorian, are going to do. So maybe we'll see live action Sabine. She has been cast. We do have an actress playing live action Sabine. I would love to see that. We got 3 more episodes, JP, of this show.
Yeah,
and I'm so excited about it. Can I just talk about the Bad Batch? The season finale happened last week.
Yes,
it's a 2-parter, and it was a great 2-parter. I think when we get to the points of the show of the Bad Batch, when we get to the overarching storyline, which is like the plan that the Empire has for cloning, for cloning techniques, and that's in here. But the second to last episode, it's a two-part. So the first part of this season finale was an homage. Like this whole episode season has been like a lot of homages to other films, Aliens, to John Carpenter's The Thing, and this week the first part was a total homage to those kinds of like World War II films where you're storming like a Nazi fortress of some kind. And this one in particular, I felt was like, have you ever seen Where Eagles Dare?
Yes, I have.
With Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood.
It's an absolutely brilliant show.
It's great.
Proper like what we would call bank holiday films, like the kind of
Right.
films when it was like a public holiday and there wouldn't be much on TV in a limited time, sort of pre-cable, and your dads would just love it. Like,
so this episode of the Bad Batch has a total Where Eagles Dare feel to it, and you totally, if you know, like I'm pretty sure 100% that this is inspired by those like that Guns of Navarone, Force 10 from Navarone, Where Eagles Dare, things like that. By the way, do you know the Where Eagles Dare is like the where I get the nickname for Martin Bushby, the Brigadier, is from Where Eagles Dare.
I didn't know you got it from there.
Yeah, it's just like, because when I first heard, you know, it would have been British audio wrestling back in the law days. Would be like, so it's Martin, Benno, and Ollie were doing the show.
Yeah.
Like I thought, I should listen to this. I'm kind of interested in Brit Res at the time. So like when I hear Martin's voice, I don't know what he looks like. I hear his voice, I'm like, oh, he's like one of them brigadier generals doing the briefing of the mission too. And then like Benno's like Lieutenant Benno, and then that would make Ollie a private first class Ollie then, right? So that's where the brigadier comes for Martin comes from, that, because he sounds like a character that would be a brigadier general doing the briefing in these kind of films.
Oh yeah, I imagine everyone. I don't know if you've seen The Great Escape before, as being like the kind of what we think of as the preeminent film, which has got every, like, in terms of a wide range of kind of like British actors and various kind of people of various statuses as well. Oh, you're just getting me down that rabbit hole there as well. But yeah, Bad Batch I need to catch up on.
Yes,
on here as well. I haven't. That takes.
But you know what? Like, so you're gonna have a big gap between whatever is like, you know, next after Mandalorian.
Well, that's
like,
it.
I seriously, honestly, watch Rebels first. Watch that first. Watch watch Bad Batch. If you haven't seen, you've seen the last season of Clone Wars, right?
Yes.
Okay, so watch Rebels first. Watch this with the kids in the house. I think they would really like it.
Then they love it.
Watch the Bad Batch, and then you'll be caught up. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna rewatch Andor once, like in 3 weeks' time, because I just thought I want to watch it again, and I want to contrast the tone of the Mandalorian versus Andor, because like we talked about this before when we were recapping Andor. The tone and the aesthetic is so different, but it's still Star Wars. I just find it so fascinating to compare the two. Like this is more like, especially like the scenes where the pirate ship's attacking Navarro and the citizens of Navarro are running away. That is very like Mandalorian in terms of like how you would shoot something like that, versus like something, the same kind of scene in Andor would have been shot completely different, like more harrowing. It would have been more harrowing. This is not, I never felt this was harrowing, you know, if you know what I mean when I use that word.
You don't. It had a very, like say, the thing I got reminded by with things like kind of like almost like the A-Team, where it is like the idea of like a kind of like a very small township, and you're taking kind of people out and trying to exactly, you're not expecting like kind of really horrible things necessarily to happen. But you mentioned about the tone. It's interesting. You know, going back, you mentioned Dr. Pershing. In terms of that felt like kind of tonally quite different as the season has gone on, because there was like the sheer, I'm trying to think of the right phrase for it, where it was quite horrible in terms of how Elia Kane turned, and it was very dark and very bleak. And then the idea of someone having their kind of mind wipe is very incredibly dystopian. And Andor had done dystopia so well. But it's interesting, like, because I was thinking about the bureaucracy think this isn't stuff that are kind of mentioned. We think, of the outer rims. It's more, between Din Djarin and Grogu, which as a storyline as well isn't really part of this episode. Like Grogu is barely there at all at this stage. It's like because the storylines have gotten so much bigger and don't necessarily involve like them and their relationship. We kind of like it's settled place. I don't know if would you think of it at this stage, their relationship in terms of how they drive the plot?
I think the main focus of this season is Mandalorian culture.
Yes.
Not the relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu. I think it's a subtle place, but I think, like it needs to grow. I think maybe next season we're going to get more exploration of Grogu. Because we need to find out so he gets rescued by Keller and Beck, Ahmed Best's character, Jedi character.
Yep.
And so what's the in between of that after Order 66 and to what would effectively be 30 years later, right? Grogu, because the time period, the existence of the Empire is about 30 years long, as the armorer says, from the point of the end of the Clone Wars, which is Order 66, to the point of where we find Grogu, which is like 6 years after Return of the Jedi. So it's about 30 years.
Yeah.
What happened? What was he doing in that time period? I think we need an exploration of that, and then maybe something from his past resurfaces that Din Djarin has to help Grogu with. That maybe that's something that we're gonna see. But no, I mean I think that the driving force going forward, if we focus on Din, is his relationship to Grogu. That's what defines him as a character from episode 1. Throughout every appearance that we have is his love, like the bond that he forms with Grogu, and now his love for Grogu, as like he looks at Grogu as his son, and Grogu looks at Din Djarin as his father. So, but like we need to find out more about Grogu's past. I think we've explored enough of Din Djarin's. Like I don't think there's too much we need to really learn more about Din Djarin, to be honest with you. But Grogu is that blank slate, that mystery, that yes. Russian doll that we kind of open up to get to the core of who he is and his journey as both Mandalorian and as a Jedi. I think that's something that we're going to see. Like I don't think he's going to abandon being a Jedi entirely, because of course he wields the Force. He has an immensely strong connection to the Force, and like that brings its own troubles with it. So,
and it's going to be, like you say, we're gonna I can imagine this is something. Obviously, we're going to be going there within the next sort of 3 episodes as well. Obviously, Moff Gideon, we're going to have coming back. So yeah, it's going to be I think at this stage we're going to see just that drive. It felt like towards the end of this episode, it was like, okay, we are now getting to the place where we're setting up towards the finale for the season. And if I can see these next 3 episodes being like kind of very much like plot heavy and plot driven, as opposed to like trying to set anything up in the background as well. But yeah, I think that takes the end of this episode, unless you've got anything that you would like to add on.
No, nothing. I don't have anything scheduled. I have things scheduled to record, but nothing to be broadcast anytime this week. So nothing to plug. I am going to go to did I mention this? I'm going to go see the Rebellion pay-per-view live at the Rebel Entertainment Complex here in Toronto.
I don't know if you'd mentioned this. This is interesting because obviously we'd heard about the Opera House.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on that. But yeah, you're going to that. Is it April 8th? Is that next weekend?
It's 19th. It's the 19th.
Oh, 19th.
It's in 2.
It's
not this coming week.
Not
this coming Sunday. The Sunday after. I'm going to go to that pay-per-view headlined by Kushida challenging for the vacant Impact title against the true Steve. Fuck you, Matty Edwards. The true Steve Macklin.
Macklin's going over, mate. Macklin is definitely going over on that.
I told Matty, hey, you're gonna have a new Steve one day, Steve Macklin.
It looks like a great venue, by the way. Just looking at some pictures of it as well.
So-
Where is it within?
It's
Toronto?
it's by the harbor front, so it's like by the harbor where Lake Ontario hits Toronto in the southern part of the southern tip of the city.
Mhm.
I've never been there, so there's apparently like a barbecue place. I'm gonna try to get a big lunch before I go to the show, because I have so all the reserve seating, from what I could tell when I went to buy a ticket, is sold out. So I'm gonna sit general admission, but like there's limited, like it's first come first serve for seating. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to stand. So I'm going with John Pollock. But he is also doing the walk up of the CN Tower that day with Wei. So I just laughed at that. I'm like, and you're coming to the show still? He's like, yeah, I'll be there. I'm like, okay. I don't know if he's gonna reach the top of the CN Tower. You know what the CN Tower is, right, JP?
I don't know the CN Tower. No.
It's the big tower, like structure in Toronto, in downtown Toronto. That's if you ever see the skyline of Toronto, you'll see CN Tower.
Ah, yes. I've just typed it into Google. Yeah. No, the one.
Okay, they're gonna climb that because it's a charity event that day.
That's mentalist. No chance.
And way smart enough to just go home afterwards. But John's gonna come out to watch Rebellion, and he said, "Oh, you should come with me." And I said, "Okay, sure." Then he tells me later after I buy my ticket, "Hey, I bought my ticket." He's like, "Yeah, cool. We'll sit together." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we should get there this time." But he's like, "Well, I'm doing the CN Tower walk." And I'm like, all right, so we'll see what happens there. But hopefully we get seats. More for John's sake than for mine. He's not going to be wanting to stand for 2-3 hours.
I was going to say, having done that and having watched a photo here of people, I'm looking at them leaning off the edge of the CN Tower.
That's not what they're doing. They're not doing the outside walk. They're walking from the base of the tower all the way to the observation deck.
He'll need a wheelchair.
Yeah. Like,
unless the Rebel Entertainment Complex is literally next door, and I think even then that'd be like,
he's definitely Ubering it over there, like for sure, and meet me there. But I'm just like, well, do you want to eat beforehand? I'm sure he's going to be hungry too, so like hopefully he'll meet me at this barbecue place that's near the Rebel Entertainment Complex. I forget the name of it, but I was like searching for a place to eat. I'm like, oh, I'll go there. It's like a 10-minute walk from there to the venue, and just try to get in line and hopefully get a seat. We'll see what happens. Play it by ear. But I got that. That's exciting. Demand Lucha. There's another show. It's gonna be headlined by a Gringo Loco.
Oh yeah.
Versus Commander with a K.
Yes.
I'm very excited to see that. So
it was great over the Ring of Honor show with Vikingo, and does some. You're gonna see some big spots.
A lot of post wrestling people being there. So like myself, John's coming, and Braden and Davey are always there at these shows, so it's good fun if you're in Toronto and you're listening to Grapple. By the way, can I just say, Davey just offhandedly mentioned you guys, and he put you over really strong, the Grapple people. So he's like, Grapple, wow, I can't exactly remember, but I remember it was very positive. He was talking about you guys on Saturday night, but it should be good. Like those are kind of like, if you see me in person, I don't know. You don't have to say anything. I don't really care. I'm not one of these people that likes attention in real life, to be honest with you. So I feel awkward when people recognize me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Thank you very much. Anyways,
I've always felt like that, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'd have to say Toronto and wrestling. It's got
JP, you should move to the city.
You need to, mate. It's crazy.
Your kids would like growing up here.
It can't be anything. Trust me, it can't be any worse than normal Ireland that I'm living on at the moment. Here, where it's just a shit show of a government. God bless.
Yeah. Our Ontario government's a bunch of fucking Tories too, but like beyond that, it's a pretty good place to live, I feel. So.
And it's let's say wrestling boom is definitely hitting Toronto. I mean, my main thing is preparing. I'm going to be watching my first full episode of Raw that I probably will have watched in some conservatively
over under. Jay White shows up tonight. Jay White showing up tonight, I think.
He's showing up. Yeah.
I think he's going to be on Raw. I think he'll be on Raw.
Absolutely. Yeah. think he is going to be he's going to be on Raw. It's a signing they kind of need to make as well. Like
They don't need him on
someone-
SmackDown. I don't
No.
think they need him on SmackDown. They need him on Raw. So he's gonna be showing up. I'm not gonna watch it. I'm just gonna be looking at Twitter, and then when it comes up, I'll watch a clip of it on YouTube later. Of,
Well,
of Jay White.
they've always stressed the point with Jay White. It feels like, that post Mania that they've gone, oh, it's the Raw after WrestleMania. I think this one's actually going to be a bit more eventful, if only because of the sale and like what they're going to end up.
I think Vince is showing up.
I think Vince is showing up
On TV for the first
and I think
time.
he's getting, and whatever disgust that we might feel as wrestling fans, we're going to end up, he's going to end up embracing it. He's going to end up absolutely embracing it. So, yes, I'm going to be watching that in preparation for Spotlight, which got WrestleMania obviously sort of taking precedence over that. I don't think I'll be catching up. I will be doing a daily update on the Grapple Patreon later on, where I'm going to be trying to go into the other kind of results and break down this 21 million combat sports and entertainment company, whatever name it's going to be coming under next, as a
Scumbag Entertainment. That sounds got a truthful ring to it. Dana White and Vince McMahon heading something called
From Truth No Consequences, New Mexico.
Well, let's go. There you go. I can't wait to listen to the pre-show, by the way, because I just it's just going to be Maddie having a verbal orgasm on air for like 20 minutes.
It is going to be. I mean, like for his wedding, it's going to be some of the stuff. The Baron Corbin story.
Oh yeah.
As well for that.
Can you spoil a little thing? Did Benno wear a vest at the wedding on Saturday?
If he wore it under the shirt, I don't know. Like but he wasn't wearing one that was over. He was very smart. We were all smartly turned out. Even I wore my suit. I like to wear a suit on any given occasion. On that, so yeah, the entire pre-show this week is going to be that bit longer as well, because we're going to be going into Matty's wedding for that. So that's going to be incredible. So yeah,
forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, we're going to be doing that then tomorrow night. So outside of that, all I've got to say is bye there.
Okay, bye there.
Gave you no warning.